Happy July, everybody. I cannot believe it's July. I am Literary Mad Max, if you're new here. I read mostly horror and fantasy, and sometimes I dip my toes into other things, but I do like my safety genres, so that's mostly what I read this month. I did end up only reading 10 books, which is pretty low for me compared to other months. It's my lowest by far, and I'm hopeful that July will be a little bit more reading heavy, but we'll see. Included in those 10 books, I did also end up DNFing 2 books because I had problems with both of them. Maybe we can talk about those ones first. In the Illyrian Code by B.F. Peterson, I believe, this came out last month and I thought the cover was really cool. It had dragons in it. It was a school setting. Those are a lot of my buzzwords of things that I tend to like. However, in probably the first 100 pages, as far as I got, they're talking a lot about skin color and how darker people are worse, and also like the white god. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is intentional, I cannot prove it, but the racist undertones in this are just not for me, and I will not be continuing. That I feel like I had a really solid reason for DNFing. The other book that I did end up DNFing was The Mercy Makers by Tessa Gratton. I was listening to this on audio, so maybe that was part of the reason that I was just not vibing with it. I was, at the time that I DNF'd it, looking for a bigger reason to DNF it other than just not liking the way the story is told. There was so much description and not a lot of investment in like the characters. I did not feel attached to anybody at any point. I didn't get super far. I was probably only 5% in, but I was already like actively disliking it versus just kind of neutral towards it. And then we find out that the main character's nickname from her father is Kitten, and that's what he calls her. Okay, fine. I don't love that, but let's continue. Then someone calls her Kitten in like a seductive kind of way, and she gets like all of these feelings about it, and I was like, I cannot do this. I can't do it. I already don't like the nickname Kitten. We're not continuing. I don't know that it would have been for me anyways, because I was just like not really vibing with anything. It was my last straw, not my first straw. But let's get into the books that I did finish. Okay, I ended up reading 10 books. We talked about that. I read 4,646 pages, which is pretty abysmal compared to other months. And my average rating was a 4.19 though, which is really good. I didn't read a single nonfiction book, so not really achieving that goal of reading one nonfiction book a month very well. And then my highest rated category was horror, then fantasy, then science fiction, and then it was queer, which I'm not surprised about at all. That's pretty standard for me. I do think that I would like to read more fantasy in the second half of the year though, like after Summerween and everything. I feel like I haven't really gotten to dig my teeth into any fantasy, and that part of my TBR is really piling up. So I definitely want to get into some more fantasy this year, especially for the r/fantasy subreddit bingo board. I am very behind on that. I read about half the number of pages and half the number of books that I typically read. That is absolutely abysmal. I think I'm going to give every book a superlative, and that's kind of how we're going to go through this. My most disappointing book is The Spirit Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I think that I did this book an extreme disservice by not reading it with my eyeballs. And I started this twice on audio, and I just didn't know what was going on either time. But also it is my in real life book club pick, so I decided to persist through it, and it is just like a 3-star read for me. I didn't really even like it, but I can see why people would, and I can see some of its merits. It has things that I typically like, but it is told in like this very different way that I didn't really vibe with at all. It's kind of like an adventure or quest story. There is a talking animal companion, but not in the way that I like them to be. Also, the audiobook narrator for a lot of the voices was either very, very similar to all of the other voices, or it was extremely annoying. So I didn't enjoy the audiobook at all. The audiobook, 0 stars. This, I think that it could be higher if I read it with my eyeballs. I am going to keep it just in the off chance that I decide that I want to try this again and maybe I'll like it. Who knows? Anything's possible, but this just was really not for me. 90% of the book was not for me. I don't even necessarily know if I could tell you what it was about. The book that I was surprised that I liked so much was Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove. This is kind of like pulpy horror meets sci-fi. We're following this spacecraft and she is trying so hard to keep her humans alive, but monsters keep infiltrating her, and so she's known as like this ghost ship, which she does not like that nickname at all. And there's also this medbot that lives kind of within her, and they kind of have this like back and forth relationship thing. And the ship at one point does end up saving 2 kids, and then as adults one of them comes back on, and it's just so touching. It reminds me a lot of Murderbot. Like, there is a lot of gore and murder, but there's also these like tender, very human moments that I just love. This is so good. I really do hope there's a sequel, and the pulpy horror, classic horror elements made me like it even more. It was just so for me. Like, we got to see this author's take on Frankenstein and werewolves and even like fish people, which I was not expecting at all. It's just so much fun, and I would definitely recommend it. This is one of my favorites from Bindery so far. If you don't know what Bindery is, it's kind of this like independent publisher, and there's different imprints within Bindery, and most of those imprints are ran by book influencers. So I just think it's a really cool business thing that exists, and this is so good. I definitely want to reread this and like tab it, but it is just so good. This next superlative is Best Redemption or Most Improved. I read a book by Cassandra Khaw, I believe last year, and it was The Salt Grows Heavy. It's like a mermaid slash plague doctor situation, and I think there's trans rep, but I just did not vibe with it at all. It's a novella and I DNF'd it. It was so short and I still DNF'd it. But I did get an early copy of the library at Hellebore, and there was just so much that I thought this could be for me. It's like horror, dark academia, heavy on the horror, and it's just so fever dreamy, and we start kind of in the middle of the story instead of at the beginning, and I don't know that this book was necessarily served by that, but I did like it so much more than Assault Grows Heavy, and I would say overall I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.75 stars. I did like it. I don't know that there was necessarily much of a point other than just like exploring different horror, but like, I had a good time. I do think that I would recommend reading it during the fall though. It's absolutely a fall time book, not a beginning of July book. Okay, how about the book that I felt the least for this month? And that would be Womb by Duncan Ralston, an extreme horror novel. This was it probably extreme horror, yes, but I just like okay, all right, no, for sure, throughout the whole book. I did vlog this and one other one, and this was my lowest rated book on my shelves, and I get it. I wasn't like disgusted or horrified. I just was like, okay, all right. I just felt so little for it, and like, it was shock value horror, and I just wasn't invested in anybody, so I didn't really care that they were going through these horrific things. It's set in a motel, and this man gets this prostitute here, and he kind of just like tells her stories of all of these horrible things that have happened in this room and in his life, and she gives him a story in return, and then they kind of, this thing at the end that happens that I was just like, okay. I'm annoyed that this was so nothing. Oh, I gave it 2 stars. If it would have horrified me, it would have been a 3-star. At least. Book that I was most surprised about liking was Awakened by Laura Elliott. I do think that the end of this book suffered a little bit. It was just a little bit of like a, I don't know what to do to end this book, here you go. But all of the rest of it I loved. I tabbed it so much. I think this book was so beautifully written. I'm very excited to read more from this author. I think her writing style is just so good. I loved it, especially for like a horror situation. I think that it's perfect. This is about a society where the company, the corporation, eradicates sleep so that the little peons that work for them can be more productive. But obviously this doesn't go well, and sleep is prevented by putting in a neural chip and kind of just keeping you awake all the time. But the people who have this chip, because one person decided that they aren't going to get the 12 hours of sleep that they need for the week, they turn into these like super subhuman monsters, and this little castle, this little space is protected, and these scientists are trying to figure out a cure. Then one day, 2 people who have been awakened walk up and are like coherent and can talk to them, so they have to figure out why and run tests on them. And one of the doctors and the subject that can talk that has come back were mostly following their conversations and their memories and things like that. This was just so for me, and I don't think that this is going to be for everybody. I don't think this is going to have very high ratings, particularly because of the ending. But I gave this 4.75 stars, so do with that what you will. Okay, should we talk about the 2 books? Out of the 10 books I read from 6 new authors. We've talked about 4 of those books so far. The other 2 are Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. I really like this one. This gave me what I wanted from Hungerstone. This was that female rage and just felt like they did something. And we're following 2 sisters, one of whom has succumbed to this kind of like, they think she's crazy, basically. And the other sister is like, we cannot send her to an asylum. She will die. I will take care of it. And just kind of figuring out what is happening to her sister. And it's set in like the 1800s in like, I think the Netherlands. It's definitely like atmospheric. I would probably also recommend reading this one in the fall. And even though like women were not treated as people at that point in time, they had so much more agency than other books that are surrounding women and women's troubles in that time. And even if that's not necessarily like accurate or would have been accurate, I enjoyed it so much more. They definitely, especially by the end, took no shit. I really liked the ending of it. Everything was really solid. I gave this 4.25 stars, and it, like, the blood edges on that paperback, I feel like really just get the essence of this book. And then the other book that I read was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And I consumed this on audiobook because everyone recommends to read this on audiobook, and I get it. I get why. I think that it's a really, really good audiobook. I like this a lot. I do think it got a little like bogged down by how much science that this author wanted to discuss, and like it wasn't particularly well written. I think the plot was really good, but the writing was just kind of fine. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and it also ended a lot cozier than I was expecting it to. I'm not complaining about that though. I just feel like I read other books like this, and I've probably read other books like this that have been published after this one, so maybe this is like the trailblazer of that kind of like cozy sci-fi genre, but I'm reading it after those ones, so it feels a little bit like, not derivative, but like I've read that before. It's not as, oh my god, this is so unique, as a lot of other people I think feel about this one. I did really like it though. I liked our main character. I liked Rocky a lot, obviously, and I'm very excited for the movie. I will be watching the movie. If you have not read this book, do not watch the trailer. It spoils a lot of the book. It spoils a lot of the mystery. Because when we come to this man, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know anything about himself. So the trailer is just really frustrating to me. I know that they have to like suck people in, especially people that haven't read the book. The trailer feels more like it is for people who have read the book though. So I would say get excited for the movie. Don't watch the trailer. And also read the book. I would recommend this one. Okay, and the last 3 books that I did end up reading this month are authors that I've read from before. One of them is a continuation of a series, and that's Ruin by John Gwynne. I'm not liking The Faithful and the Fallen as much as I like the Bloodsworn Saga, but I'm still liking it, and I think each book gets better. I did really like this book. I'm excited to continue. I'm excited to finish out the quartet. With each book, we've followed mostly a boy named Corbin. In the first book, we are getting introduced to Corbin. In the second book, we are kind of introduced to the fact that he is the chosen one, and in the third book, we are watching him kind of try and live up to this chosen oneness, come to terms with that he is the chosen one, and I'm very excited for book 4. And kind of to see where that goes for him. This is very classic John Gwynne and also very classic like old white man fantasy. This is like a Viking style situation with magic, and they have spears, and it's a lot about the war, but I am really enjoying it. I think John Gwynne's character work is just so, for me, like the relationships that he builds, I love them so much. And this, I would say, is like a 4.25 for me. It was a really solid installation into the series. I read another Paul Tremblay this month, a horror movie. I thought this was really fun, really kind of like pulpy Hollywood horror. It's about a man who was the monster in a horror movie like in his early 20s, and it never went to film. So many bad things happened, but now they're trying to reboot it like 20 years later, and he is kind of being the monster in it again, and all of these weird things are happening. We're trying to figure out what's happening. This reminded me a lot of Paul Bear's Club, but I think I liked Paul Bear's Club more. I also read Paul Bear's Club far too close to this one, and I think that did it a little bit of a disservice for me, but I did like it. I did like this book for sure. I ended up giving it a 4-star. Paul Tremblay is a consistently solid horror writer for me, and I'm excited to read more of his backlist. This is the very last book that I finish in June, so I guess it's fitting to talk about it last, and that's The Unseen by Anya Alborn. I really like this one. I like this a lot. I found it very creepy. I found it very tense. I don't think that they're similar books, but it gave me the same tension, the same tense feeling as We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kluwer. I thought that this was so creepy and so frustrating. We're following Isla. Mostly we get perspectives from everybody though. There are 5 children and 2 parents, and we get perspectives from all of them. So it does get a little bit repetitive sometimes because we are sometimes overlapping in our timelines and in our like physical feelings, but I still really did like this. This book is over the course of 4 days, and Isla has just lost her 6th child and has gone through a lot of miscarriages up until this point and just doesn't really feel complete. Feels like she needs another child. And even though they're a 1-income family, they're already like tight on space and resources. She's like, we need another one. And one day she finds a kid. He just shows up, which is very unusual because they live very much in the country. And there's pretty much nobody for like a 3-mile radius at least. And even at that point, it's more of their like rural neighbors and not like a city. So they take in this very odd looking mute child, and then things start going horribly wrong. I thought this was so interesting. The youngest is 5 years old, so we got to see children's perspectives too, and I think that really served this book. I really liked it. I would definitely recommend it. I gave this like a 4.25, and I have just finished it, so that rating may change, but I foresee it going up to a 4.5 because I have been thinking about it since I finished it. Those are the 10 books that I read this month. I had a really decent reading month, but just like not quite as many books as I wanted to get to. Hopefully July, I'm just a reading machine. That's the plan. I need to read a lot of ARCs. I have a lot of buddy reads going on, a lot of fun things, a lot of fun book things, so I'm very excited. And let me know how your reading month went, and if you haven't really read anything this past month, leave me a physical media emoji for a horror movie, and I will see you in the next one, which is hopefully a reading vlog. Hopefully I can get that finished for this weekend. I will see you in the next one. Bye!